In this episode of American Greed, two grannies in jail.
You were greedy. That's the problem.
Caught on tape.
No, we're gonna go to jail, honey. They're gonna lock you up.
Their cold-blooded murder for money plot is finally up.
They'd already murdered 2 men, was gonna murder me.
Their story is about to unravel.
They just fed them and housed them like animals, just for the sole purpose of killing them.
And it sounds just like something out of a Hollywood movie.
Okay, we'll take care of that.
I think I still could not really get my brain around the fact that these two geriatrics had executed this guy.
Admit it was your fault. Because what you did, of course I got angry.
Los Angeles, California, June 22nd, 2005. In the early morning hours, traffic detective Nelson Hernandez gets a call for what looks like a hit and run in the upscale neighborhood of Westwood.
There was a man in the alley, dead, and they wanted me to come out and investigate it.
A middle-aged man lies face up in the center of the alley. There's a bicycle a few feet away. The front wheel is off, as though the man had been changing a tire when he was hit by a car.
We checked the tire and it was hard. He had air in it. And then the other thing was, well, if he's gonna work on the tire, why would he put his helmet on top of the tire? It just didn't make any sense. And why would he stop here in darkness? Why would he just walk the bike down to the end of the alley where there's light?
The man has nothing in his pockets except for two photo IDs.
So it was very clear that someone wanted to tell us who this guy was.
His name is Kenneth McDavid. Hernandez notes that McDavid's clothes are covered in grease, most likely from the bottom of a car, unusual for a hit and run.
Usually pedestrians will get hit and then they will either get pushed to the side of the road or will flip over the car and they will land someplace else. They would not have all that grease from the undercarriage. So there were a few things there that just didn't look right.
Once the sun comes up, Hernandez combs the area for witnesses and inquires about any surveillance video taken that night. One of the stores on the block has several cameras in the alley.
We looked at the video that this camera had captured, and we could see tail lights of vehicles entering the alley and traveling southbound in the alley.
The camera doesn't capture the victim, but there's something suspicious about one of the cars that enters the alley.
The brake lights came on, all lights went out. The lights came on 5 minutes later, and the vehicle just drove off. It appeared to be a Ford Taurus or a Mercury Sable station wagon.
He can't make out the license plate number. All he has is the possible make and model of the car and the dead man's IDs. He follows the only lead he has, McDavid's last known address, 1843 Cherokee Lane.
We made a follow-up to that address. We talked to the manager and she said, yeah, he used to live here. He used to live on the 4th floor.
Ken McDavid played classical piano and worked as a disc jockey in his hometown of Sacramento. He moves to LA to try his hand at writing screenplays. He can't make it as a screenwriter and eventually becomes homeless. The building manager at 1843 Cherokee Lane tells Detective Hernandez what she knows about McDavid. An older woman named Helen Golay takes him off the streets and pays his bills for many months.
She appeared to be a well-to-do type person. Why would this lady allow this supposedly homeless man to stay in her apartment for so many months?
Before Hernandez can track Golay down, he finds out that she's gone to the morgue, claiming to be McDavid's fiancée. She identifies the body and requests that he be cremated. Then things get stranger. Another woman, Olga Rutterschmidt, who claims to be McDavid's cousin, shows up at the police station asking for a copy of the police report.
Usually, when a family member comes to the station, they're hurting because their loved one died. So they want us to explain to them the report. Many cases, they cry and so on and so forth. And they have questions. Not in this case. They basically came in, got the copy, and out the door.
Rutterschmidt's cold, businesslike demeanor leaves a profound impression. And then, more red flags. toxicology comes back. Ken McDavid's body has large amounts of 2 prescription medications, including a sleep aid, Ambien.
Why would you be taking a sleeping pill if you're going to go out and ride your bike?
Hernandez begins to wonder if Ken McDavid's death was no accident, if someone set him up. But if it's murder, what's the motive?
It was just frustrating. I just didn't have enough to be able to solve this case.
Time passes with no new leads. 2 months after Ken McDavid's death, a life insurance claim comes into Money, Mutual of New York. Ed Webster is an investigator assigned to the case. The claim is for $1 million.
The beneficiaries were Olga Rudderschmidt and Helen Golay. The contract was written in the context that Kenneth McDavid was a businessman. These 2 women were his business partners in a company called HKO Associates, which, is an acronym for Helen, Kenneth, and Olga. They claimed that he made about $60,000 in annual income, and that if he passed, their business would be adversely affected.
Ed Webster soon discovers that Helen and Olga told police that they were McDavid's fiancée and cousin, not business partners. Something doesn't feel right. Webster flies to LA to try to get some answers.
There had been a medical examiner's report, and when I looked at that, it was the first time I saw Kenneth McDavid represented as a homeless man, which flew in the face of all the documents that we had at underwriting.
And there is more.
The address that was listed as his home address was actually Helen's address in Santa Monica. The address that was listed on the application as his business address was Olga's address in West Hollywood. So those were clearly misrepresented.
It looks like Helen and Olga are definitely in business together. The question is, what kind of business? They take in a homeless man, apply for $1 million life insurance policy on him, lie about their relationships to him, and now he's dead. Webster tries to schedule a meeting with Helen Golay and Olga Rudderschmidt to ask them about Ken McDavid. To his surprise, all he gets is doors slammed in his face.
Neither of these 2 women would speak with me, ever. They would never call me back. They left cards in the mailbox, I screamed from the sidewalk, I did everything. And they just flat out refused to talk to me. Their expectation was to collect $1 million in life insurance proceeds. Answering my questions would certainly be one step towards fulfilling that goal, and they just wouldn't do it.
The 2 women's reaction makes Webster even more suspicious. He decides it's time to talk to the LAPD. When he and Detective Hernandez put the evidence they found together, they're confident there's more to Ken McDavid's death.
Why would this ladies be taking life insurance policies on a guy that appeared to be homeless?
Hernandez shows Webster the grainy surveillance video taken of the alley. As they start to piece the puzzle together, the 2 women who come across as nice old grannies are beginning to look like cold-blooded killers.
They paid a lot of money in premiums for $1 million worth of life insurance. And they paid a lot of money for rent and housing. So if you take all of that in mind, the only way that they could capitalize on their investment is if he died.
Next on American Greed, a coincidence that's too close for comfort for police reveals another victim of the killer grannies. In Los Angeles, Detective Nelson Hernandez investigates a hit and run in a Westwood alley. The victim, Ken McDavid, was once a homeless man until 2 older women take him in and put him up in an apartment. But a puzzle is unraveling, and now what once appeared to be 2 grannies lending a helping hand is starting to look suspicious. The 2 women file for benefits on 2 insurance policies they take out on McDavid. The total, $1 million. Detective Hernandez talks about the case with a colleague, Detective Willman, when they make a startling discovery.
I said, Lee, this just didn't make any sense. Got this guy in the alley, and now I get this insurance guy telling me that these 2 old ladies in their 70s have insurance policies on this guy totaling $1 million.
He had mentioned that the guy was in an alley, got hit by a car, and had life insurance policies. I'm thinking in my mind, hey, I had this before too. I walked back to where we keep our unsolved fatals and our cold cases. Well, back in November of '99, this is who I was dealing with.
Detective Willman's victim is Paul Vados. In 1999, Vados, a homeless man, is found dead in an alley, an apparent victim of a hit and run. Two older ladies claim to be next of kin.
And he said, "Did you get the names of those two ladies?" And I said, "Yeah, one of them is Olga, and the other one is Helen." He said, "Those are the same names that I got from my two old ladies. Do you have a phone number for them?"
310.
He says, "Wait a minute, that's the same phone number that I got from my two old ladies."
When Detective Willman talks to Helen Golay, she claims to be Vados' fiancée.
She had zero emotion on the phone about what happened, and most people do.
Later, Olga Rutterschmidt follows up with a phone call claiming to be Paul Vados' cousin.
She came in a couple weeks later for a copy of the police report. She had no emotion. She had no interest in the investigation. She just wanted to get the police report and leave.
The parallels between Paul Vados' case in 1999 and Ken McDavid's in 2005 are a little too close for comfort. Two homeless men with sizable life insurance policies literally run over and crushed to death in two different alleys.
Made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Gave me the kind of chilling feeling.
And that's when we looked at each other and it was, bingo, we got more than a traffic accident here. These two old ladies are killing the homeless.
The irony of the situation doesn't escape them. Two detectives who sit across from each other just happened to hit on two identical cases?
It was a miracle, basically. The odds of us sharing this same information, the odds are just 1 in a billion.
Insurance investigator Ed Webster hears about the new development in the case and begins pounding the pavement. If what he and the police suspect is right, there's a method to how Helen and Olga find and choose their victims. He has a theory that the two women are searching out victims on Skid Row and in treatment centers.
The perfect vehicle for these women to capture these fellows would be in rehabs or AA meetings where people are open. They can identify people who don't have family. They can identify homeless people. You know, they can identify people that would not be missed.
His hunch pays off.
I was able to find the Presbyterian Church in North Hollywood where they actually were capturing these guys. Vados was there, McDavid was there, and there were predictable gatherings of homeless people there. So that was like a home run for me.
Ken McDavid and Paul Vados were regulars at Hollywood Presbyterian Church's homeless shelter. Two of the seemingly good souls who come to help out are Helen Golay and Olga Rutterschmidt. Pastor Charles Suheda remembers them.
My first impression of Helen and Olga was good. They were nicely dressed. Now, they didn't actually talk about volunteering there or serving there at all, but they did express an interest and wanted to know, what we were doing. If they're coming for the first time, we always explain to them a little bit about history and how people can actually volunteer in the program.
They do reach out to a few of the homeless men. They seem interested in their plight, but they're not. They prey on their desperation and isolation. They tell them each the same story. They can help. They offer what's irresistible to a homeless person, food and shelter. What the homeless men don't know is that the women have a plan, and it's time to perfection. They immediately take out insurance policies on the men, saying they are either business partners or relatives. Then they wait. It takes 2 years before they can collect on the insurance policies. They guard their prey like investments for that 2-year period.
By housing them for 2 years, they would know who they communicated with and who they didn't communicate with, and that there was nobody. They would become totally dependent on these two women, and they would know from conversation and phone call or whatever that they had nobody else. So they would feel comfortable in having them disappear.
Once the 2 years are up and the women can collect, the men are history. And they start looking for their next victim. In downtown LA, Jimmy Covington is down on his luck, living on the streets.
Mostly the hardest part of being out there is just trying to get back up out of the street because you need a little help. I mean, I could work a little bit, but I just couldn't get the housing that I needed, and I couldn't get the medical attention at first, and I had to really struggle to get those things.
Olga watches Jimmy. He sleeps behind a church, and the security guard has just kicked him out. One day, while Covington is walking in downtown LA, Olga approaches him.
Olga approached me. She came right up to me and asked me, "Are you homeless?" I kind of said, "Well, why were you asking?" She said, real anxious. Well, I'm an advocate for homeless, and I've helped other homeless guys, and I can get you benefits, and I can get you $2,000 a month, plus I can pay you $15 a day, and also have a little place for you to stay right now if you want to come up and fill out some paperwork for me. I said, well, okay, I'll try it out. Where's this place at? And she said, right behind you upstairs. I went, whoa, okay. I'll go up and see what this woman's all about.
Olga takes Jimmy to an office building across the street near the intersection of El Centro and Hollywood Boulevard. She takes him upstairs to a small office space that's sparsely furnished.
She came back the next day and she had some more paperwork. And then she started wanting my mother's name and her social security number, her maiden name, and my dad's stuff and all their medical background and history. And I said, I don't have that information for you right now. I can't get it. She started banging on the desk and her fist was sticking out and her eyes were sticking out. I'm just thinking that she's not right. I don't know what her situation was.
Jimmy lives at the office building on El Centro for 4 days, but he reaches the breaking point when he hears Helen and Olga fighting outside his door.
And I said, here's your key back. I shut the door and I left.
A smart move, as Jimmy will later realize. Helen and Olga apply for an $800,000 life insurance policy on his head. Unlike Vados and McDavid, Jimmy Covington lives to tell about it. Back at the LAPD, Detectives Hernandez and Willman confront the shocking truth about Helen and Olga.
It seemed to me unimaginable to think that two old ladies in their 70s could be conspiring to kill homeless people.
The case is getting big, and LAPD's homicide squad is called in. Next on American Greed, with an undercover camera rolling, Helen and Olga finally talk.
The letter. I don't care. Thank you.
What they say could land them in prison.
If you're not going to pay me the full amount, this has been a total waste of my time.
Wait, one more question then. Call the police if you don't leave me alone. Here, break the door. Hey, listen. Ooh.
And later, do the pair have another potential victim in their sights? In Los Angeles, two men, Ken McDavid and Paul Vados, are found dead in two different alleys 6 years apart. LAPD detectives believe both men were killed by Helen Golay and Olga Rudderschmidt. But Helen and Olga are unlikely suspects, both in their 70s with no criminal records.
Most of the population we deal with, we plug their name into these computers. The computers start smoking and spit out 30 pages of information. With Helen and Olga, there's nothing. We don't know if they're related. We don't know what their connection is. We don't know what their connection is to the victim, if any.
The women are put on round-the-clock surveillance. 24 police officers watch their every move.
Detective Sanchez and I are kind of floundering around trying to figure out, well, what are we going to get in the daily lives of Helen and Olga? What are we going to learn? We started reaping the rewards of the surveillance almost immediately. And we started learning who they would go see during the day, where they went, where they banked.
They're the perfect odd couple. Helen Golay drives a Mercedes and lives just a few blocks from the ocean in upscale Santa Monica. She's a creature of habit. She lunches at Izzy's Deli several times a week and gets a reputation as a bad tipper. Olga, an immigrant from Hungary, is athletic. She takes long walks and climbs steep trails through the Hollywood Hills.
To our amazement, they were never, ever seen together. And it's not like Olga comes over for pot roast on Thursday nights or something. It's just nothing.
With surveillance on the suspects underway, detectives meet with the victim's family. Ken McDavid's family is surprised to hear he had a fiancée.
He never mentioned these ladies, or never mentioned a fiancé, or their names never came up.
Meanwhile, Ed Webster, the insurance investigator from Mutual of New York, is compiling a mountain of evidence.
I was able to call other companies just to determine if they had coverage, and I found that there was a lot more coverage on McDavid and there was a lot of coverage on Vados, all of which was in favor of Helen and Olga. There wasn't a single contract out there that had anyone else as a beneficiary.
In fact, there are 20 insurance policies with a face value of more than $5 million. Armed with what he thinks is a good cause to pull the plug on his company's insurance, Webster returns to the women's homes to get some answers, this time with LAPD homicide detective Rosemary Sanchez by his side. But they can't get in. Helen's house is surrounded by an 8-foot wooden gate, and she won't answer the door. At Olga's residence, they meet resistance of a different kind.
Ed's knocking on the door. Who is it? And he identifies himself, Ed Webster from Mutual of New York. Immediately, she's busy now. She can't come to the door. She's taking a bath. So we said we'd wait for her. No. I don't want to talk to you. Well, we'll come back later. No, I have nothing to say. She did not want to talk to Ed Webster at all.
But now Webster has another card to play. He calls Helen Golay and sets up a meeting at her favorite deli, supposedly to deliver her insurance check.
We were just reaching for anything that was going to help us build our murder case. In our minds, now we're thinking, okay, they're murderers, and we got to get them off the street here.
Detective Sanchez is with him. This time, she's wired for audio, and she has a small camera that looks like a button on her shirt.
Is your signature on here?
Here? Yeah.
That's where you signed it? When we met Helen initially, the first thing out of her mouth was, I'm not answering any. I'm here for my checks. Don't ask me no questions.
But instead of the $1 million check, he hands Helen a refund for her premium payments. He says the insurance company is canceling the policy. She's outraged.
I gave her the letter and the check, and she read it, and she threw the whole thing at us, and just started ranting that it was unacceptable. She was going to call her lawyer.
If you're not going to pay me the full amount, this has been a total waste of my time. I am very unhappy. It's caused me a lot of grief and heartache and problems.
And then she went outside, and we waited, but she clearly was not coming back.
I'm thinking, oh yeah, she is just an evil, greedy woman that needs to go down. They're involved. They killed him. How they did it, we don't know yet. So we're on it.
Now it's Olga's turn. They arrange to meet her in a bank lobby, but she doesn't show. Helen could have warned her. They go to her apartment and knock on the door. This time, Detective Sanchez gets it all on tape with her undercover camera.
We're knocking on the door. She's pissed off. Talk to my lawyer. If we don't get away from the door, she's going to throw hot water on us. I said, go ahead.
Then I told her that, her deal might be different than Helen's. And so she was willing to open the door and take the letter.
Please give me the letter here.
There you are.
Thank you. This is Moni's check. What is this $1,800? What is this?
It's a refund for the premiums that you paid.
No, we don't accept this. What is this?
Read it. Read the policy there. The letter.
I don't care. Thank you.
If you have
Wait, one more question then. Okay, go ahead. Quit slamming. You gotta break the door. Hey, listen. Ooh.
Neither one of them would engage for a second. Not for a second.
Next on American Greed.
I have to call my lawyer.
As fraud evidence mounts, investigators make arrests. But can they prove murder?
There you go.
Who has done this to me and why? Oh my, that's a lie. This is assumption.
In Los Angeles, Helen Golay and Olga Rudderschmidt are trapped. Helen is angry.
If you're not going to pay me the full amount, this has been a total waste of my time.
Olga is even more blunt.
What is this?
Read it. Read the policy there. The letter.
I don't care. Thank you.
Their behavior bolsters detectives' darkest suspicions that the two women killed Paul Vados and Ken McDavid for insurance money.
You just see her and you're like, yeah, she's so evil. Yeah, she would do it.
I think everybody involved in this case knew that these women were as hard as it could to believe they were killing these guys. So they knew they weren't normal grannies.
The circumstantial evidence is compelling, but investigators have no smoking gun. They plan to buy some time by first building a mail fraud case.
The charges fall into play when you make your monthly premium payment, and you put a fraudulent application in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and you put it in the United States mailbox. Well, each time you do that, that's one count of mail fraud.
Continuing investigation finds that Helen and Olga apply for 26 fraudulent life insurance policies with multiple companies. The face value totals close to $7 million, but the applications are filled with lies. They lie about addresses, income levels, and most importantly, their relationships to the men. They claim to be fiancé and cousin to both dead men on some claims, business partners on others, when in reality, Vados and McDavid are homeless strangers they take in off the street.
Those were the kinds of things that made it immediately apparent that there was fraud.
To help make the case, the FBI gets involved.
Anytime we identified a bank account, credit cards, we would start subpoenaing the records, and there were a wealth of information. We found that Helen was actually wiring money from her account to Paul Vados' account to pay premiums, so it would appear to the insurance company that he was making the premium payment. In terms of proving a fraud case, it made my life really easy. I mean, it was just one pack of lies after another.
As investigators build a mail fraud case, the LAPD has Helen and Olga under 24-hour surveillance. They learn that Olga is meeting regularly with an elderly Hungarian man named Joseph Gabor.
Surveillance has taken pictures of Olga, Mr. Gabor. She's leading him into banks, opening bank accounts, side streets, on the back of her car, signing papers, and she's obviously instructing him what to do and where to sign. So right before our eyes, they're working up another victim. We're as far as we can go, and I can't have surveillance people on Helen and Olga and watch them run over Mr. Gabor. We can't do that.
On May 18, 2006, 70 agents from the FBI, LAPD, and other agencies arrest Helen and Olga.
I have to call my lawyer.
Okay, we'll take care of that.
All at once, the tentacles go out, and we're going to seize all the information that we can get at one time.
I don't know what is this. What is happening here?
It was a Cecil B. DeMille production. I mean, there was a ton of people.
Bend your knees, come on. Bend your knees. There you go.
And it went off basically without a hitch.
Ms. DeLay, my name is Sam Meros. I'm with the FBI. You're under arrest for mail fraud.
Mail fraud?
Yes.
But what reason?
For fraud.
There's no proof. No.
It's actually for mail fraud.
I haven't done any mail fraud. What are you talking about?
Insurance.
When Helen was arrested, all she kept saying was, who would do this to me? Who would do this to me?
Who has done this to me and why?
What are you talking about, Helen? Yeah, you did it to yourself.
Perhaps because of experience, Olga is quick to throw Helen under the bus.
There was no insurance fraud. Helen Goley made insurance.
Olga's pretty predictable. She's ranting and raving, and she's quite the talker. We know this by now, that she just never... She's not crazy, but she's very caustic with anybody she comes across on the street.
Oh, my, that's a lie. This is assumption.
Let's just keep...
Anytime.
Helen, on the other hand, comes out, and she's little Miss Innocent. Oh, what's going on? You've got the wrong house. It can't be me. I haven't done anything.
I can't believe this. I have no mail fraud whatsoever.
But inside, Helen's home is filled with evidence against her.
When we searched Helen's residence, there was a book in the living room, and the book was The Sociopath Next Door, with a subtitle or something like that, 1 in 25 Americans has no conscience whatsoever. And we're thinking, gee, that's a strange book for Helen to be reading.
The book is only the tip of the iceberg.
We found a whole bunch of original checks that she had written to pay for premiums for the insurance companies, for the rent on Ken McDavid's apartment. I saw a check Olga had written to a rubber stamp company We called the owner and met with him. When we went over there, we showed him a picture of Olga. And he said, "Oh, this is the Black Widow." And we said, "What? What are you talking about?" I thought maybe he knew something we didn't know.
The stamps are precise copies of her victims' signatures.
But she bought a number of signature stamps, not only in Ken McDavid's name, but also Paul Vados' name, her own husband's name, even Helen Golay's name. She would tell the stamp guys, "Yeah, I'm helping out the homeless," or I'm trying to help these people who can't get in here and pay their bills." Well, supposedly, she is doing her good deed for society.
The money trail highlights the viciousness of the crime. Helen and Olga planned to keep the men alive just long enough to avoid suspicion, and then lead them to slaughter.
We found scratch paper in Olga's apartment where she was literally figuring out how much premium they were going to have to pay over a 2-year period. That's pretty good circumstantial evidence, I think.
They just fed them and housed them like animals, just for the sole purpose of killing them.
While the LAPD and the FBI are searching their homes, Detectives Kilcoyne and Sanchez take Helen and Olga in for questioning.
We put them together in an interview room, and like a couple of convicts, they immediately start shushing each other, but Olga can't keep her mouth shut. She's just running at the mouth.
The interrogation is being taped. What the two women don't realize is that when detectives leave the room, the video is still running.
Why did you make all these extra insurances? Too many you had. There's a limit. You can't do that many.
I know that.
You were greedy. That's the problem.
I mean, this is a gold mine for us. I mean, right before our eyes, there are little rowboats sinking fast.
We had no problem with the relationship. You pay me and be nice and don't make extra things. I was doing everything for you.
They're hanging themselves. And Helen knows, she's cognizant of what's going on. She keeps trying to shut Olga up, but it's not working.
You are wasting your time and energy with this. And secondly,
no, we're gonna go to jail, honey. They're gonna lock you up.
I don't think so.
And they come just short of saying that, that they personally did it.
Kenneth wanted these policies.
Yes.
He signed for these policies. And we happen to be punished because of what he wanted. That's not right. Now remember the bottom line.
And I was the cousin, you're the fiancé, baloney.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Next on American Greed, the police have the murder weapon, which leaves one question.
Who's behind the wheel?
The shocking answer when American Greed returns. In May of 2006, Helen Golay and Olga Rudderschmidt are in federal lockup, looking at 8 counts of mail fraud. But LAPD detectives suspect them of much more. Murder. They believe Helen and Olga have killed 2 homeless men, Ken McDavid and Paul Vados, to collect $2.8 million in life insurance payouts. The problem is, investigators have trouble believing that Helen, who's 75, and Olga, 73, killed the 2 men by themselves.
We knew that they had committed murder. We just didn't have direct evidence linking them to it.
We can't just seem to wrap our brains around the fact that these little old gals are that vicious that they are actually behind the wheel of the car. We're holding out for more and more information all the time, as are the prosecutors. They're just, you're not there yet, you're almost there, but who's behind the wheel?
During a search of Helen's apartment, FBI Special Agent Sam Mayrose finds an answer to that question in Helen's daily planner.
I come across this one page, and there's a Post-it on it, and it's got a partial tag, a partial VIN. I was like, holy smoke, Eureka, we found gold, because we knew that had to be the car. So I gave that to Dennis. He called back to his office, and within minutes, they had the complete VIN number, the license plate number, knew who the current registered owner was, and from there, it was just Katie bar the door.
It's a 1999 silver Mercury Sable station wagon, just like we have in the video. And we go out and they locate it.
Now the pieces are beginning to fit together to form the perfect scenario of murder for money. The night of the murder, shortly after the timestamp on the surveillance video shows the Mercury Sable pulling out of the alley, Helen Golay makes a call to an auto repair shop from her cell phone. she's hit something and broken the fuel line.
She actually called for road service on the night of McDavid's murder, 1 block away from McDavid's murder off Westwood Boulevard, to have a 1999 Mercury Sable station wagon, the car we've got in our lab right now, towed back to her residence.
The phone call puts Helen at the scene of the crime. She abandons the car in the alley behind her home. It's later impounded by the city, but the underside of the car hasn't been touched since that night. It's a perfect specimen for forensic testing.
Well, the Highway Patrol people put it up on a lift, and they start going through the undercarriage of the car. On the right side of the undercarriage is what they call wiping, and the road grease is absent. Well, that shows that they ran over something that wiped the bottom of the car clean.
Kilcoyne believes that something was the body of Ken McDavid. When McDavid was found in the alley, his clothes were covered with car grease. There are dark spots on the underside of the vehicle that police think could be Ken McDavid's blood. They send samples to the lab for DNA testing. The answer could conclusively identify Golay's car as the murder weapon. Helen and Olga are sitting in federal prison, arrested for mail fraud, to buy police time to build a murder case against them. The mail fraud is easy to prove. Each one of the life insurance policies the two women take out on the dead men is a pack of lies. In some, Helen and Olga claim to be business partners. In others, fiancés and relatives. But Helen and Olga aren't worried. In a telephone conversation, Helen tells her daughter she's confident police can't build a case against them. She's wrong. 2 weeks later, the DNA results come back. The spots on the underside of the car are Ken McDavid's blood.
So then we all realize these are evil, evil women, and they are in fact the ones behind the wheel of the car. It's our belief that they probably met him, took him to dinner, and the combination of this prescription medication, which we found in powder form mixed together in a prescription vial in her medicine chest, they're sprinkling that in his drink that night. And we can see from the videotape, the car goes down the alley, passes under the one camera, the brake light comes on, the lights go out. Now, for 4 to 5 minutes, the lights are out, which is our belief that that's the time that they're pushing McDavid out of the car. The backup lights come on, the car comes back about 50 feet, stops, and then the car moves forward. So they've laid him out, they back up to get a running start, and then they go forward and they just bulldoze over this man, crushing him to death. And it's at this point we believe that the fuel line is pulled from the undercarriage of the car, and then because of the 15% grade on that alley, the car rolls down to the next block, and that's where Helen calls for AAA tow to come get her.
The evidence against Helen and Olga is overwhelming. They're charged with 2 counts of murder and conspiracy to commit murder for financial gain. Their relatively cushy lives abruptly change. They trade in their upscale lifestyles for county jail.
You could tell that they were terrified, that this was not part of their world. You know, this was something that you read about maybe in a magazine or the LA Times and you turn the page because it disgusts you. But this is real life in the city, and they were part of it now.
On March 18, 2008, the case goes to trial. Deputy District Attorney Bobby Grace is one of the lead prosecutors.
People say, wow, you know, these people were upwards of 70, 80, going on 80 years old, and they were involved in this complex scheme to murder 2 individuals for financial gain. Even in Los Angeles, that's unheard of. Definitely have never prosecuted anybody as old as they are for murder.
Grace has to prove that these 2 women are not what they appear to be.
I think there's a lot of people out there that would commit crimes to survive or to enrich themselves, but how many of them are willing to go through such elaborate means to get millions of dollars? It's just mind-boggling.
The prosecution has a mountain of evidence, but the coup de grace is a tape of what transpires between the 2 women after they were arrested. Their interrogation is taped, and when detectives leave the room, the little old ladies speak their minds.
Admit it was your fault, because what you did, of course I got angry. You were greedy, that's the problem. We have to cooperate now. We have to attack money together.
That was just really the nail in the coffin, so to speak. Once the jury got an opportunity to really hear from Helen Golay and Olga Rudishman out of their own mouths, then they realized that these women were truly, truly greedy and truly evil, that they were willing to do anything to gain and to profit.
After a 6-week trial, Helen Golay and Olga Rudderschmidt are found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Among those satisfied with the sentence is Jimmy Covington, the victim who got away.
I went around with the papers showing everybody, look, this is, they got him, they were going to kill me, they got him. I went through that trip for a while. I was really ecstatic about it.
Olga and Helen are sent to different prisons. Both women appeal their cases, but in August 2009, their convictions are upheld and the appeals are denied. They will remain in prison the rest of their lives.
That's probably the best punishment for two greedy people like Helen and Olga, that they ought to sit out the rest of their natural lives thinking about, why did I let greed drive me to have to spend the rest of my life in prison?
You almost wonder if it was like a drug to them. I joke a lot that it's crack. Maybe they got addicted to it. They just wanted money.
Detective Kilcoyne has an interesting theory about the pair. It all comes down to greed.
If they had slowed down, not got so many policies on McDavid in the multiple millions of dollars, they'd still be out there.
Trevor Cook claims to have a revolutionary new way to trade foreign currency with guaranteed profits.
Investments were safe and protected and in segregated accounts.
I am here to give you solutions to this massive fiscal pollution that everyone in this country is experiencing without exception.
And more than 700 investors roll over their life savings.
I thought, this is very impressive. It's invested overseas, so therefore it isn't taxed. Oh my goodness, this is just too good to be true, isn't it?
But no one knows that Cook and his partners are con men by day, who turn their historic mansion into a den of debauchery by night.
He enjoyed all the wealth he could steal.
Until the feds ask a straight-laced banker to go undercover. Can he help catch the thieves?
Somehow they had merged into some conglomerate of fraud and...
In downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Van Dusen mansion was built in the late 1800s by a baron of the grain industry. Made of hand-carved quartzite, it appears solid, steady, and built for the ages. Exactly the image its newest owner wants to project.
He is one of the nation's leading money managers. Please welcome Trevor Cook.
Thanks, Jim.
Trevor Cook acts like a modern-day magnet.
I want to thank everybody again for coming.
A top trader in the high-risk, high-reward world of foreign currency exchange. The story begins with Cook playing the role of local boy made good. But there were warning signs early on.
Trevor Cook was an average student, went to the University of Minnesota, graduated with a degree in economics, who was like a bull in a china shop. He had an alcohol problem. He ran sports numbers while in college.
After college, looking to make big money fast, Cook goes to work for a Minneapolis gold coin dealership.
He was a largely unsuccessful coin dealer and sort of bounced around jobs and was not particularly successful in any way until he hit upon this currency exchange program in the early 2000s.
Then his career takes a big jump. Within 5 years, Cook goes from small-time coin dealer to big-shot currency trader. Cook partners with former co-workers from the coin dealership, and by 2008 they set up shop at the Van Dusen mansion. They call themselves the Oxford Group, and they play up their new headquarters to the hilt.
They would hold seminars at the mansion to try and entice people to invest in this foreign currency exchange program that Trevor would pitch.
Dozens of potential investors are bussed in each week through brokers and partner firms under his Universal Brokerage Service, or UBS. Cook claims to be a worldwide leader in the highly complex game of foreign currency arbitrage.
If you get out of Webster's dictionary
and you look up arbitrage in the dictionary, it means a transaction that can extract profits with no risk from an inefficiency in the marketplace.
The strategy is complex and confusing. Cook claims to have invested in a revolutionary new software program that skims tiny percentages from international banks converting foreign currencies thousands of times a day.
The key to how we execute arbitrage is largely technology-based.
Cook says that the principal invested with his program is guaranteed safe and encourages attendees to go all in, rolling over their IRAs, 401ks, and other retirement accounts.
We also always keep liquidity. It's another big thing I recommend, to stay away from investments that are not liquid. You know, what good is your money if you can't get at it?
They made these representations consistently in terms of principal protection, double-digit returns on their investments, dealing with sophisticated banks and countries, and that their investments were safe and protected, and that they were always liquid so that the investor could obtain them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Cook comes off as a down-to-earth Minnesotan who happens to be a financial whiz. His disfiguring scar is said to be the result of a high school hockey injury. And it doesn't hurt his ability to close deals. He and his partners are able to pull in nearly $200 million in capital from more than 700 investors. Cook's partners in the Oxford Group include licensed stockbroker Bo Beckman and a former professional wrestler turned coin dealer Jerry Durand. They each have a role to play at the investment seminars.
And they would have Bo come up as sort of this super successful financial services guy, and he would lay out his pitch for his handling their money.
So I started at Merrill. I ran money there. I ran money at International Bancorp. I ran money at Wells Fargo. Now I'm a senior portfolio manager for the Oxford for our large cap core. I believe the market is here and exists to do this: take as much from as many for as long as it can.
Jerry Durand would come up and he would introduce some of the younger sales staff that they would then go mingle among the people who were having dinner and drinks and whatnot, and then invite them to invest in the program.
You're going to learn how you can create wealth and survive your wealth.
But the Oxford Group also has another marketing strategy, one that has the potential to reach millions of people. Talk radio.
Welcome, America, to the broadcast Follow the Money with Pat Kiley.
Pat Kiley is a partner whose radio show airs on more than 200 stations around the country and is a funnel for bringing in new investor capital into Trevor Cook's program. In a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, 55-year-old Curtis Harvey is hearing good things about the show from a friend.
He said, you know, I've been listening to this guy, Pat Kiley. I started listening, and that's what encouraged me to do that. And he said, I feel pretty comfortable. The returns look very good up to this point from what I can tell.
Harvey is intrigued but doesn't want to make a hasty move. He's been a protective coating salesman for 30 years. He works hard, makes a good living, and contributes to his IRA. But he'd love to get better returns.
I am here to give you solutions to this massive fiscal pollution that everyone in this country is experiencing without exception.
I listened to Pat probably for 6-8 weeks, and a lot of what Pat brought up was safety, security, and integrity and honesty and things like that, and you need to secure your money.
For 22 years, we have worked with various countries, governments, and their currencies, and the global bank interest rates.
He said that while the principal is segregated, you'd make like an 8 to 10% swing. He said some months it might bump to 12 and some it might drop to 7, but he said it's a consistent 8 to 10 range. So I invested.
Harvey decides to roll over $120,000 from his IRA, and over the next year adds another $80,000. After getting his initial statements, he believes he's made a sound decision.
It looked like there was growth taking place. There were some charts they had where it showed a linear growth, an upward curve. It would be incremental, just small amounts, not big. I didn't want to get rich quick. I just wanted some steady growth that was secure and safe.
Next on American Greed, investors believe that their money, like the Van Dusen mansion, is being cared for by respectable businessmen. If they only knew.
Prostitutes regularly visited, as did strippers.
Drug use, drinking, prostitution, anything happened there.
In 2008, Trevor Cook appears to be a master of the universe. From his grand historic mansion in downtown Minneapolis, he claims to run a $4 billion hedge fund, raking in guaranteed profits from a foreign currency trading program. More than 700 people from around the country have invested, including senior citizen Betty Wager, who learns of the program through Cook's partner, Pat Kiley, and his talk radio show, Follow the Money.
You couldn't help but just want to listen, and he was on for a whole hour on Sunday morning, and from 7 to 8 o'clock, and I'd lay there in bed before I had to get up and go to church, and I'd listen to him.
I'm the senior partner of an international investment banking firm, and we are not connected in any way to stocks, bonds, and all of the rest.
He would talk about how awful it was that the government taxed every penny we made, and I thought, wow, and I've got an investment with a company right now, and you know, when I get the printout in the mail, anything that I've invested has a minus sign in front of it. And I'm going, I got to call them and see what's going on, because I really don't understand investing money.
Wager has been retired from the phone company Quest since 1992. She lives on a pension and Social Security income. She bought her house with an inheritance left to her by her parents. The rest, about $50,000, she has invested with a brokerage firm. But listening to Pat Kiley, she begins to rethink where she placed her nest egg.
He sounded very convincing, let me tell you. No more taxing your money. It goes, it's invested overseas, so therefore it isn't taxed.
After listening for several months, Betty and her daughter Betsy decide to meet with Kiley in person.
He struts in there just like a celebrity, you know, and he sits down at the desk, and we talked for over an hour. The longer you sit there with him, the better it sounds. What can I say? On the way home, I said to Betsy, you know, why I feel good about this investment, and that it wouldn't be taxed, and that when I needed some, maybe for a new furnace or an air conditioner for my home, I would have the money. And I thought, this is right where I have to be with this investment. And that's what I did.
Betty invests her $50,000 inheritance, and for a time she believes she made a great choice. After all, she is promised there is no way she could lose it.
Every 2 weeks, I'd call and ask, how is my money doing? And he'd say, just fine, just fine. You need money today? No, I don't need money today, but I just thought I'd see. And he'd say, no, well, just remember what I said. Have a good day.
Wager, like hundreds of others, simply trusts that the investment program is legitimate. But while they may appear to be highly successful, Trevor Cook and his cohorts are not actually making any profits. They are spending hard-earned investor capital on whatever they like. Cook spends $3 million on the mansion itself, using it as a showpiece by day. And after hours, a shameful din of debauchery that Betty Wager's life savings should have had no part in funding.
Well, the mansion at night was an entirely different place. There were big parties there. Thousands of dollars worth of booze were consumed there. Trevor Cook would pass out in his chair, wet himself. He was falling down drunk.
Drug use, drinking, prostitution, anything happened there.
One night, Trevor, in order to impress a stripper that he had picked up, bet $500,000 on a football game and lost.
Not the kind of place where you would want your mother or grandmother to go to invest their life savings.
Former employees report that not all of the partners are partaking in the bacchanal, but they are all spending the so-called profits, with Trevor Cook leading the way.
He bought the mansion to make it look like they were this huge, successful operation, but he was also spending money trying to make money because he knew he was losing so much money. He was a gambler, and this investment scheme was pretty much a gamble. He was not making trades as these guys were promising. It wasn't safe, it wasn't hedged. He was buying oil, commodities, things that the investors had no idea what was going on.
I think Mr. Cook also enjoyed a luxurious lifestyle while he was performing this fraud and enjoyed all the wealth he could steal.
Cook spends his money on high-end items that suggest wealth and class. Fabergé eggs, Rolex watches, and luxury sports cars. But the real Trevor Cook is neither wealthy nor classy, and he does a poor job of pretending to be.
He had a Jägermeister tap and a couple of beer taps, and there was a lot of empty bottles all over the place. In his private bathroom, he had all these posters from gangster movies, Al Pacino and the like, and he was a real fan of Scarface, you know, and the gangster life.
In line with his wannabe gangster persona, Trevor Cook decides to stake a claim in the casino business and shells out $13 million for a piece of property in Central America.
He got into a Panama casino deal. I think it was all in hopes of making it big and being able to, you know, actually get some money since he was losing so much in this trading.
Cook isn't the only one spending on whatever he sees fit. His partner, Bo Beckman, the licensed financial advisor of the outfit, prefers to spend his millions on real estate and other amenities.
He had very lavish homes in a variety of places. He had cars, he had country clubs, he had a variety of different accoutrement that goes with actual success. In reality, this wasn't based on his own success, but based on the sales to investors to turn over money, which was then converted for his own use.
In 2008, Beckman even attempts to purchase a stake in the NHL hockey team, the Minnesota Wild.
Attempting to buy the NHL team was an effort to provide legitimacy to him and to indicate that he was a real business person, when in fact the entire bid was premised on a fraud.
Pat Kiley is the only one that appears to live frugally. But in reality, he's spending millions of dollars to produce and expand his radio show, which in turn brings in 2/3 of the investors. Next on American Greed, Trevor Cook tries to recruit a local investment banker into his scheme, but he picks the wrong guy.
This was not only a fraud, but it was populated by guys who had been involved in fraud for years. And somehow they had merged into some conglomerate of fraud and scumbaggery.
In late 2008, Trevor Cook's Oxford group is hemorrhaging money. Cook is losing tens of millions of dollars in illegal gambling and risky commodities trades, all while telling his investors their principal is protected.
Trevor Cook and the others really sold him on how safe this investment was, and they got a lot of investors to pretty much give all of their savings to them.
Things get decidedly worse when Cook decides to partner with a shady international firm.
They had invested in a business called Crown Forex over in Switzerland. In 2008, they became patently aware that it was highly illiquid and that they were going to have difficulty getting their money out. They'd already suffered significant losses through their trading program that lost millions and tens of millions of dollars.
Cook is in need of a huge infusion of capital to keep his operation running, and that's where Ty Schlobohm comes in. In 2009, Schlobohm is managing director of a Minneapolis investment bank. His clients are large institutional investors. One day, he gets a cold call from Trevor Cook.
Somehow, Trevor and his team became aware of me and the services I provided. So they contacted me to see if I could be a conduit to institutional capital.
Within a couple of days, Schlobohm is headed to the Van Dusen mansion in downtown Minneapolis.
It was a very ornate, old, historic mansion. In Trevor's office, which was on the very top floor, it was a large office filled with trading screens and computers and such. And Trevor began to opine on what his strategy was, which was in the fixed income / currency arbitrage game. My first impression was that I had never heard of this before, but he was offering a guaranteed risk-free rate of return of 12%. That is a number that is very attractive, so I obviously entertained the thought of what the heck he was doing.
As Schlobohm carefully listens, Trevor Cook lays out the details of his investment program.
The strategy that Trevor said he employed was doing something called a hedged carry trade. A carry trade is basically borrowing securities in a low interest rate country and using those funds to buy currency in a higher earning interest rate country.
Schlobohm knows the carry trade as one of the riskiest financial ventures out there.
They described the carry trade as picking up pennies in front of a bulldozer. But Trevor's strategy, or often the story he would tell, was that he would be able to fully hedge out the risk through his relationships with Middle Eastern banks.
Cook says he is able to get interest-free loans from Middle Eastern banks that are compliant with Sharia law, which states that banks cannot charge interest.
I understand Sharia compliance, whereas they see charging individuals interest as usury and not allowed within the compliance of their religion or ideology.
For years, this has been Trevor Cook's pitch, and the unsophisticated investors he targets have eaten it up, perhaps without fully understanding the plan. But now, Cook has met his match. Ty Schlobohm understands exactly what Cook is saying. He just doesn't believe it.
My initial thoughts were that this makes no sense. My experience having done business in the Middle East is that in lieu of taking interest payments, they usually take an equity ownership in the firm, or they find some way to monetize their lack of interest that they're having. I certainly asked, well, why would they offer you these hundreds of millions, conceivably dollars of use of their capital for no revenue? And that's where the story became a little elaborate and highly inconsistent.
Schlobohm leaves the mansion uncertain about what he has stumbled upon, and decides to do some more research into Oxford's head honcho, Trevor Cook.
He said he was managing $4 billion, which at the time in 2009 would have put him in, top 25 largest hedge funds in the world. And I never had heard of him once, but he was registered on the NFA. So when I looked into the NFA, I could see that he had spent most of his time as a coin dealer.
Schlobohm doesn't stop there. He digs deeper into Oxford's supposed investment strategy and the backgrounds of the principal partners Bo Beckman, Jerry Durand, and Pat Kiley.
I made some calls into colleagues that were quite the experts in foreign exchange and foreign exchange arbitrage, and I could not find anyone that had even heard of this so-called trade. I looked into the infrastructure and the backgrounds of all the individuals there, and they were checkered, to say the least. I saw many individuals with regulatory marks in their background. Empirically, the returns were not only improbable, but impossible.
Very quickly, Ty Schlobohm begins to believe the program is a fraud. And so this banker, husband, and father of 2 small children faces a life-changing decision. Does he simply walk away, say no thank you, and leave the Oxford group for someone else to deal with? Or does he do something?
My first thought was, God, this is so bad. Don't walk away, run, and make sure, you never find something as slimy as that again.
But Schlobohm's deciding factor comes down to the investors, a room full of whom he sees at a seminar during his very first visit to the mansion.
My observation quite quickly was that these were financially unsophisticated individuals, what appeared to be elderly people without a lot of financial resources. And my observation was it was 70 plus people with a nest egg under 6 figures that were investing.
When American greed returns, the straight-laced banker goes undercover on a crime-stopping mission.
I'm jettisoned from being an investment management financial service employee, and now I'm trying to be a junior G-man and get the smoking gun.
In March 2009, investment banker Ty Schlobohm presents a case to Minneapolis Assistant U.S. Attorney Joe Dixon about what he believes to be an outright scam involving the Oxford Group's foreign currency program.
This was 100% without any doubt a Ponzi scheme. I couldn't walk away and do nothing.
He was an investment advisor himself, and the story that was being told to investors simply didn't make a lot of sense.
The group is headed by Trevor Cook, who reached out to Schlobohm as a possible conduit to large institutional investors. Now Schlobohm wants the feds to shut Cook down. But before they can act, the U.S. Attorney's Office needs to know more.
What was important to us was to understand what exactly was being told to investors, because in a fraud investigation, at least from a criminal perspective, there's two components. One is what are investors told is going to happen with their money, and the other thing is what's actually happening with their money.
My expectation was they were going to give me a pat on the head and send me out with a lollipop and say, you know, good job, we appreciate the tip. And that was not the case. They asked me if I'd help. So very quickly, I said, I have to think about this.
Ultimately, Schlobohm decides that he wants to do everything he can to put Oxford out of business as soon as possible. And so the gears begin turning on a case that takes him from the rarefied air of high finance to the gritty world of criminal investigation.
They wanted me to collect evidence, both audio and video evidence, of what they were saying and what they were doing, to basically cross the T's and dot the I's on what was actually the fraud. I also tried to engender myself to Trevor, and hoping that they would offer and let down their guard and say, you want in on this.
The FBI wires him up with undercover audio and video equipment and sends him back to Oxford's headquarters at the Van Dusen mansion.
It is pretty surreal. I'm trying to gather information. I'm trying to get them talking. I'm asking them a host of questions, and it's all recording. It's exciting. It's really nervous. It's just a situation that you're ready to wake up from. But in the back of my head, I kept telling myself, this is the right thing to do.
Schlobohm spends an increasing amount of time at the mansion and secretly records several investment seminars.
I'm seeing a marketing factory in terms of quantity of potential investors that they're drawing into this place. It's high, and they seem to have enough swagger that they're bringing in a high hit ratio in terms of closing business.
In this seminar video, filmed for promotional purposes, Trevor Cook attempts to explain to potential investors his foreign currency arbitrage program.
The key to how we execute arbitrage is largely technology-based.
A lot of times they said that their big secret to their success was this technology company, which was based in Switzerland. If you were to just look up and or even Google their name, you can see that they're in as close to financial default as possible because their software, or lack thereof, was totally ineffective. But their success, if I can even use that word, was they would make it so complicated because they would not be consistent with their stories that people, again, they'd have to just take sort of a leap of faith.
While federal agencies work together to methodically build their case, Ty Schlobohm is spending less time at his actual job. And he doesn't feel good about receiving a salary while keeping his employer in the dark. He decides to make yet another personal and professional sacrifice, choosing to resign and focus full-time on the undercover operation.
It's probably not the best story to come home with to your wife, that you quit your job and that you are undercover informant trying to take down a Ponzi scheme that will have absolutely no reward and is fraught with risk. But my wife was supportive and was on the same plane in terms of doing something that was right in a time when a lot of things were going wrong in the financial industry. This is the dog and pony show. You would have a number of inconsistent stories coming from them.
But after 4 months, Schlobohm is ready to be done with his secret assignment.
I'm nervous of something falling out of my pocket or a camera head being exposed, and I'm certainly wondering, what the hell am I going to do if that does happen? Am I gonna run? Am I gonna, get killed? So I definitely didn't want to get caught doing what I was doing.
But investigators are still relying on their man inside to provide key information.
You have to have really good probable cause to shut something like that down. So it's not just one person going in and coming back and saying, yep, it's fraudulent, let's shut it down. It's not that easy.
Next on American Greed, The feds figure out exactly how the bad guys are operating. And it's the beginning of the end for Trevor Cook.
They said, things are happening quickly now, and on this day, can you arrange to make sure that Trevor Cook is at this location?
In 2009, Trevor Cook's Oxford group is running into trouble from all sides. Multiple federal agencies are investigating them for civil and criminal prosecution. Then, in July, a group of Ohio investors decides they want to take several $1 million out of the fund. When they can't get their money back, they sue.
It was the combination of the civil lawsuit by investors starting to ask real questions about where their money was and how it was invested, along with the efforts by the Department of Justice and the SEC and the CFTC really sort of caused a real bright spotlight onto this business, which caused the collapse of the organization.
The feds decide it's time to move in. And once again, they tap their confidential informant, Ty Schlobohm, for help.
They began to tell me that things were going to proceed quite rapidly and to have organized or scheduled Trevor to be in the mansion at this time on this specific date. We also diagrammed the matrix of the interior of the building as well.
On the day of the raid, investigators know exactly how to get to Trevor Cook's office and keep him there for questioning. They also collect hundreds of thousands of documents and files, including phony statements that were regularly sent to investors.
The paper statements were made in-house. They were basically done by simple math. If you had $100,000 invested and you were promised 12%, you got your $1,200 a month added on to your account statement and then mailed to you.
Investigators are tasked with tracking down and speaking to more than 700 investors scattered across the country. One of those is Betty Wager, who first learned of the investigation from the press.
I can't believe this. These guys are a bunch of crooks. I couldn't have believed this in a million years, that this could happen to me. And yet I couldn't say I'm so dumb, because I'm not dumb. I knew what I was doing. My eyes were open, but it was such a great, big, beautiful lie that we couldn't see through.
The grandmother has no choice but to accept her fate as a victim of fraud.
What do you say? What do you do? What can you do? Pray. There's nothing left. It's gone.
The average investor lost about $200,000. The median was about a $100,000 investment, and half of those people lost their entire life savings. So we're not talking about big institutions or sophisticated parties. We're talking about regular people who were scared about the economy, were scared about their investment options, and really trusted people.
1,100 miles away, near Atlanta, Georgia, Kurt Harvey is happy that he has invested $200,000 of his retirement savings in hopes of a bright future. He is blissfully unaware that the walls are closing in on the Oxford group until he tries to reach them about rolling over his wife's 401k as well.
I left message after message, no answer. Started to get worried. I was traveling at the time, and so I made a few more phone calls. And when I got to my hotel that night, I tried to go on the website, and the website was shut down already. And all of these different blogs came up and reviews came up, and it was run and hide, take your money before, don't invest, it's a scam, the whole thing. And right then is when, you know, I lost it, just lost it.
It's not long before Harvey confirms the worst. Much of his life savings is gone.
Panic, just sick to my stomach. Definitely had to make several trips to the restroom. It was just so upsetting to know that I'd lost that much money. And I think I felt, you feel betrayed when you're duped by someone who you thought you could trust.
While Harvey and hundreds of other victims are left reeling, a team of federal agencies is figuring out where the money went. And a federal judge assigns a receiver to seize the assets of the Oxford group.
$190 million was taken in from investors. Approximately $50 million of that was returned to investors in what I call lulling payments. So payments to investors that suggest to them that there's reality here, that there's profits that are being made, and gives them comfort that their investments are safe. But a lot of the money was sent to various banks, both domestically and abroad, for the purpose of these currency investments. The high-risk currency investments, and tens of millions of dollars were actually lost in these currency investments.
About $25 million was sent to the Swiss company called Crown Forex and then disappeared.
So where did the money from Crown Forex go? The Swiss government is investigating and has been since this broke. No one seems to be saying where that money went.
Another $13 million went to Trevor Cook's Panama casino deal. And Cook and his partners also spent about $30 million on themselves.
Cars, houses, all of which was ultimately recovered by the receiver and sold at auction.
The receiver is able to recoup less than $15 million, which means pennies on the dollar returned to the more than 700 investors who lost a total of nearly $150 million. When American Greed returns, instead of cooperating with the receiver as he agrees to, Trevor Cook is still lying and trying to stash as much loot for himself as he can.
They found some money hidden in a locker. They found some money hidden in walls.
In November 2009, accused fraud mastermind Trevor Cook agrees to turn his assets over to a court-appointed receiver, but they find out he's still lying.
Mr. Cook evaded that receivership and defied the court order, and ultimately he was put in jail for failing to follow the court orders regarding his assets.
We had received a call that the Mall of America had found 2 duffel bags containing a bunch of foreign currency and a bunch of gold coins. They proceeded to put a camera on the lockers to see who shows up to get it.
The next day, a known associate of Trevor Cook's comes to collect the contents of the locker and gives Cook up. Trevor Cook also fails a lie detector test and eventually leads agents to his brother's home, where they find another stash hidden in baseboards in the basement. $100 bills, gold and silver coins, collectible watches and sports memorabilia totaling more than $400,000. Trevor Cook sees the writing on the wall. He's got no other play. So he decides to plead guilty to charges of tax evasion and mail fraud. For his lack of cooperation, a federal judge sentences Cook to the maximum, 25 years. But the judge still doesn't believe that Cook has revealed everything.
Judge Rosenbaum warned Trevor. He said, if you have any inklings that when you get out, you're going to go and find that, find some money and live well for the rest of your life, get over it, because we're going to be watching you the rest of your life.
It takes another 2 years for investigators to build their cases against Trevor Cook's partners, Bo Beckman, Jerry Duran, and Pat Kiley. A fourth partner, Chris Pettengill, cooperates with prosecutors and gets a reduced sentence of 7.5 years. The other 3 go to trial, and all are found guilty on more than 10 counts of fraud. On January 3rd, 2013, Betty Wagert is in the federal courtroom when the men are sentenced for stealing her $50,000 inheritance.
This is the most trying experience for just someone like me to sit there in that room and listen to them lie before the judge and get on their knees and cry. Bo Beckman couldn't even breathe. He was crying so hard before the judge to go lenient on him and have mercy on him. And then Jerry Duran's daughter. Oh, my father has always taught us to be honest. I said, oh, yeah, right. Too bad he wasn't. So it was quite a day, quite a day.
The judge then sentences Bo Beckman to 30 years and Jerry Duran to 20 years. 74-year-old Pat Kiley's sentencing date is delayed due to his health. Joe Dixon believes that the stiff sentences represent a tidal shift in the punishment of white-collar criminals.
I think people are starting to recognize the devastation that financial fraud can have on people's lives. The fraud in this case wasn't just one person. It was hundreds of people. And we're talking about unsophisticated elderly people. And so the fraud was really heinous in lots of respects and deserved very significant sentences.
Now, Betty Wager gets by on her pension and Social Security income. She has no savings and no cushion.
I watch every penny I spend. Every penny. You have to. I just keep saying every day, Lord, don't let my refrigerator break down. Lord, don't let me lose my furnace or have it stop, because that can be expensive. Don't let my water pipes freeze, because it's 0 outside. Retirement was good for a while.
I don't know how they live with themselves, knowing what happened to these people. Families were broken up, homes were lost, people don't go to the doctor when they need it. And these guys had no compunction whatsoever about taking money from old people who needed it and spending it on prostitutes and gambling.
60-year-old Kurt Harvey is in better shape than a lot of the elderly investors, but he and his wife still feel the pain of being victimized.
I had planned to retire much sooner. I'm going to be working probably an extra 9 years to make up that difference. And the way the market is nowadays, that 9 years might end up being work until you die. And I hope I never see them on the public streets, ever, ever.
To date, the Harveys have recouped just $5,500 of their $200,000 loss. There is still money unaccounted for, about $2.4 million, and as many rumors, it seems, about where it might be. The most dramatic is one that involves Trevor Cook and the purchase of a secret submarine.
They were never able to substantiate that, and he later said, well, that was all a lie, even though he said in an email, I just bought a sub. And so people wonder, you know, is that money sunk in a sub somewhere? Is it someplace that Trevor can get it when he gets out?
According to the IRS, the most plausible theory is that Cook and his cohorts simply partied the money away.
Well, anytime you take cash out of the bank, it's pretty much gone from there. It's hard to track. We knew they spent lots and lots of money having parties at the mansion, outside the mansion, bringing parties back to the mansion. But for the most part, out of the $190-some million, it's a small percentage of money that we can't trace.
Ty Schlobohm, the undercover informant who first identified the fraud and brought it to the authorities, now works in finance for U.S. Trust. He believes there's a lesson in this story that should resonate with other professionals in the industry.
I hope there's any takeaway to this. It's that people within the industry have a fiduciary responsibility to the financial services industry. And I hope my story motivates people.
Yet Molly, she wanted us to know that her daughter Tyra Crosby was not an intruder in Alexander's home and was actually invited inside by Alexander's husband. I came home and I had seen a woman inside my house, and I pulled out my gun and shot her, and she's not moving. The 911 dispatcher fell silent for a moment. On the other end of the line, 53-year-old Stephanie Alexander stood in her living room, gun still warm in her hand, as the body of a young woman lay motionless on her floor. Welcome to Shadows of Crime. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button to join our community of truth seekers who demand justice for victims whose stories deserve to be told. Charlotte, North Carolina, July 18, 2023, 5 a.m. The darkness before dawn holds many secrets, but none as devastating as what happened inside a modest home on Porter Street that morning. A 25-year-old fashion entrepreneur with dreams of building her own clothing empire, a middle-aged woman returning unexpectedly to her residence, a husband with a dangerous secret, 3 lives about to collide in the most catastrophic way. She killed my baby in cold blood, Tanya Huskins would later tell reporters, her voice breaking as she clutched her daughter's photograph. She killed her at 4 a.m. and was out by 8 p.m., meaning that human life has no value. But what truly happened in those pre-dawn hours? The official story suggested a homeowner protecting her property from an intruder. The reality? far more disturbing, as investigators would soon discover the young victim's phone had been recording. An accidental call to her mother had captured everything. 8 minutes of audio that would change the entire direction of the case. It's about an 8-minute-long message of her being beat, tortured, Hoskins revealed. You can also hear them telling her that they were gonna kill her. What could drive someone to such violence? What words were exchanged in those final moments? And why was Tyra Crosby really in that house on Porter Street? The GPS on her phone would tell one story, the surveillance footage from an arcade on North Tryon Street would tell another, but it was what happened between those two locations that would reveal the most shocking truth of all, a truth that would leave you wondering, was this really about finding a stranger in your home, or something far more calculated? Before Tyra Crosby became a headline, before her name was spoken in courtrooms and whispered in shocked conversations across Charlotte, she was a young woman with boundless potential. At just 25, Tyra embodied the spirit of modern entrepreneurship. Her passion for fashion wasn't just a hobby, it was her calling. She had launched her own clothing line, transforming creative vision into tangible designs that reflected her unique perspective. Each piece told a story. Much like Tyra herself, she was spontaneous, compassionate, and full of love. Her mother, Tanya Hoskins, would later recall, eyes glistening with memories that now served as painful reminders of what was lost. My daughter deeply cared for those around her. The bond between Tyra and her mother transcended the typical parent-child relationship. They were confidants, best friends who shared hours-long phone conversations about everything and nothing. Dreams, disappointments, daily triumphs, all flowed freely between them. This connection would later prove crucial in ways neither could have imagined. Those who knew Tyra described a woman whose energy lit up rooms. Her creativity wasn't confined to fashion, it spilled into every aspect of her life. She approached challenges with innovative solutions and saw opportunities where others found obstacles. Charlotte's local business community had begun taking notice of the young entrepreneur, whose designs captured attention and imagination. What made Tyra's approach to fashion distinctive was her emphasis on accessibility. She believed everyone deserved to feel beautiful, regardless of size, shape, or budget. This philosophy informed her business decisions and endeared her to a growing customer base, who appreciated both her aesthetic and her values. Her social media accounts painted the picture of a life in motion. Fashion sketches, fabric swatches, behind-the-scenes glimpses of photo shoots. Interspersed were moments of joy. Dinners with friends, quiet evenings with a book, impromptu dance sessions in her studio. The timeline stopped abruptly on July 17, 2023. A final post showing color palettes for her upcoming collection. What Tyra couldn't have known was how the next few hours would unfold. How a chance encounter at an arcade would set in motion events that would extinguish all her potential, all her dreams. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of Tyra's story isn't just what she accomplished in her 25 years, but what remained undone. Now I'm left wondering who she might have become. As the sun set on July 17th, Tyra made a decision to go out for the evening. Like countless young adults on countless evenings, she was simply looking for connection, perhaps some fun after long hours of work. She couldn't have known that the man she would meet that night had secrets. Secrets that would prove fatal. The vibrant, ambitious woman who left her apartment that evening would never return. Instead, her legacy would be transformed into something she never could have anticipated, a cautionary tale about deception, jealousy, and the devastating consequences when truth remains hidden. The evening of July 17, 2023 began like any other summer night in Charlotte. The humidity hung thick in the air as Tyra Crosby stepped into an arcade on North Tryon Street. Security cameras would later capture these moments. Ordinary footage that would become extraordinary evidence in a murder investigation. What drew Tyra to this particular arcade remains unclear. Perhaps it was the nostalgic appeal of classic games, or simply a place to unwind after focusing on her fashion business all day. Whatever her reason, this decision placed her directly in the path of a man whose actions would ultimately lead to her death. The security footage shows Tyra laughing, moving between games, seemingly enjoying herself. At approximately 10:30 p.m., she begins conversing with an older man. This man, later identified as Stephanie Alexander's husband, appears animated in their conversation. Their interaction seems casual, friendly, nothing to suggest the tragedy that would unfold hours later. The surveillance video shows Crosby in an arcade on North Tryon Street with Alexander's husband. Hours before her death, Tanya Huskins would later tell investigators, her voice tight with anger and grief. This chance meeting, or perhaps not so chance, set the evening's fatal trajectory in motion. What wasn't captured on camera was their conversation. What promises were made? What invitation was extended? The man, significantly older than Tyra, old enough to be her father, as Hoskins would later point out, never mentioned one crucial detail. He was married, and the home he was inviting her to wasn't just his, but one he shared with his wife. As the arcade began closing around midnight, the pair exited together. Separate cars, separate paths, but a shared destination, the residence on Porter Street. GPS data from Tyra's phone would later confirm what her mother suspected. The GPS on her phone and her car states that she had only been to the residence one time. This wasn't a regular occurrence or ongoing affair. This was Tyra's first and only visit to the Alexander home. The drive from North Tryon Street to Porter Street takes approximately 15 minutes through Charlotte's nighttime streets. During this drive, did Tyra text anyone about her plans? Did she have any premonition about what awaited her? These questions remain unanswered, lost in the silence between arcade lights and doorbell chimes. What we do know is that sometime after midnight, Tyra arrived at the Porter Street address. The modest home gave no indication of the violence that would later unfold within its walls. Neighbors would later report seeing her car park outside, an unfamiliar vehicle on their quiet street, but not unusual enough to raise alarm. Inside, the man welcomed Tyra into what she believed was his home. The exact nature of their relationship, whether romantic or platonic, remains unclear. What is certain is that Tyra had no knowledge she was entering a married couple's residence. No awareness that Stephanie Alexander might return at any moment. The hours between Tyra's arrival and the confrontation remain largely unaccounted for. What conversations took place, what activities filled the time? The only certainty is that as the night deepened toward dawn, Stephanie Alexander was making her way home, unaware that her husband had invited a young woman into their shared space. In a cruel twist of timing, had Alexander returned home even an hour later, had Tyra left just 30 minutes earlier, the deadly confrontation might never have occurred. Instead, the clockwork of fate aligned with devastating precision. At approximately 4:00 a.m., headlights swept across the front of the Porter Street home as Stephanie Alexander's car pulled into the driveway. The sound of her key in the lock would have been unremarkable on any other night, but on this night, it was the opening note in a symphony of violence. As Alexander entered her home in those pre-dawn hours, she was about to discover what she perceived as the ultimate betrayal. Her husband, another woman, her home, her territory, violated. What happened in the moments immediately following her entry remains disputed. Did she confront them calmly at first? Did rage consume her instantly? The only certainty is that within minutes, Tyra Crosby would make a desperate phone call to her mother, a call that would capture the final, terrifying moments of her life. The moment Stephanie Alexander stepped through her front door at 4 a.m., the atmosphere inside the Porter Street residence transformed. What had been a casual late-night encounter instantly became a powder keg of emotions, betrayal, rage, and fear, colliding in the pre-dawn darkness. Alexander, 53, had not expected to find anyone in her home besides her husband. The sight of 25-year-old Tyra, young, beautiful, and clearly invited by her spouse, triggered an immediate and visceral reaction. According to court documents, Alexander didn't ask questions. She didn't demand explanations. Instead, she reached for her gun. What happened next was captured in an accidental phone call. A call that would later become the most damning piece of evidence in the case against Stephanie Alexander. At some point during the confrontation, Tyra had managed to dial her mother's number. Perhaps it was a desperate attempt to call for help, or maybe it was an inadvertent press of a speed dial button as the situation escalated. Whatever the reason, Tanya Hoskins' phone began recording a voicemail that would document the final 8 minutes of her daughter's life. It's about an 8-minute-long message of her being beat, tortured. Hoskins would later reveal her voice breaking as she described the recording she could never unhear. You can also hear them telling her that they were gonna kill her. The recording, too disturbing for authorities to release publicly, reportedly captured the sounds of physical assault, Tyra's pleas, the voices of both Alexander and her husband, threats, impact sounds, and finally the gunshot that ended a young woman's life. This wasn't a split-second decision made in the heat of discovery. The 8-minute duration of the recording suggests a prolonged confrontation, time in which different choices could have been made, time in which a life could have been spared. During those 8 minutes, what was Alexander's husband doing? Court testimony suggests he was present throughout the confrontation but did nothing to prevent the escalation to violence. His inaction, his failure to intervene or de-escalate, would later become a point of contention among Tyra's family members, who believed he bore responsibility for creating the dangerous situation in the first place. I think that Tyra was very innocent in this situation, Hoskins insisted during interviews. She was invited to that home. I know my daughter wouldn't have went there, knowing it was a married couple or that it was a wife's home. She was lured there by the man. The recording reveals another disturbing aspect of the confrontation, the apparent premeditation in Alexander's words. You can hear them telling her that they were going to kill her, suggests that the shooting wasn't merely a reaction to finding Tyra in her home. It was the culmination of minutes of threats and violence. Forensic analysis of the crime scene would later support this interpretation. The location of blood spatter, the positioning of furniture, and the trajectory of the bullet all told a story, not of self-defense, but of execution. At approximately 4:08 a.m., according to the timestamp on the voicemail, a single gunshot rang out in the Porter Street home. The bullet struck Tyra in the chest, causing catastrophic damage to her heart and lungs. Death would have come within minutes, if not seconds. In the immediate aftermath, the recording captures sounds that investigators described as cleanup activities, movements, whispers, the closing of doors. Then, silence. It would be nearly an hour before Alexander called 911 at 5:00 a.m. to report the shooting. This gap, this hour of silence, would later become crucial to prosecutors building their case against her. When Alexander finally made the call, her voice was calm, controlled. I came home and I had seen a woman inside my house and I pulled out my gun and shot. And she's not moving, she told the dispatcher. The narrative she presented was clear. She was a homeowner who had discovered an intruder and acted in self-defense. But the recording told a different story. A story of a young woman who realized too late that she had walked into a dangerous situation. A story of a confrontation that escalated from discovery to death. A story that contradicted Alexander's claim of an immediate reaction to finding a stranger in her home. By the time police arrived at the Porter Street address, Tyra Crosby had been dead for over an hour. Officers found her body in the living room, Alexander waiting calmly to surrender herself, and her husband nowhere to be found. The scene presented to investigators was carefully arranged, a narrative of home invasion and self-defense. But beneath this constructed scenario lay a more complex truth that would only emerge as detectives began to unravel the events of that fatal night. What Alexander couldn't have known was that Tyra's final call to her mother had captured everything. The threats, the assault, and most damning of all, the premeditated nature of the violence that ended a young woman's life. When CMPD officers arrived at the Porter Street residence at approximately 5:15 a.m., they encountered a scene that initially appeared straightforward. Stephanie Alexander met them at the door, composed and cooperative, and she's inside. The body of Tyra Crosby lay motionless in the living room. A single gunshot wound to the chest. No signs of forced entry. A handgun placed nearby. Charlotte 911, do you need police, fire, or medic? The recording begins. I need police. Somebody just been shot in my house. Alexander responded, her voice steady. This call, later released to the public, would become the first piece in a puzzle that grew increasingly complex as investigators dug deeper. Alexander's initial statement to responding officers aligned with her 911 call. She had returned home, discovered an unknown woman in her house, and fired her weapon in self-defense. I came home and I had seen a woman inside my house and I pulled out my gun and shot and she's not moving, Alexander told the dispatcher. Presenting a narrative of a homeowner protecting her property from an intruder, the investigation took a dramatic turn the following day when Tanya Hoskins arrived at the police station. Devastated but determined, she handed over her phone containing a voicemail that would transform the case. It's about an 8-minute-long message of her being beat, tortured, Hoskins revealed to authorities. You can also hear them telling her that they were going to kill her. This recording directly contradicted Alexander's claim of an immediate defensive reaction upon finding a stranger in her home. Instead, it suggested a prolonged confrontation that escalated to fatal violence. I want to know where you're watching from today. I'll ask you now. Drop your location in the comments below. Are you from Charlotte where this happened, or are you watching from somewhere else entirely? Your engagement helps this channel reach more people who care about justice. 6 hours after her arrest, while Tyra's body was still being examined by the medical examiner, Stephanie Alexander posted a $250,000 bond and walked free. This development shocked the community and devastated Tyra's family. She killed my baby in cold blood, Hoskins told reporters outside the courthouse. She killed her at 4 a.m. and she was out at 8 p.m., meaning that human life has no value. The initial charge of voluntary manslaughter reflected the prosecution's preliminary assessment based on Alexander's self-defense claim. Voluntary manslaughter typically applies when a killing occurs during a sudden quarrel or in the heat of passion. A lesser charge than murder, which requires malice aforethought, criminal defense attorney Mark Jetton, though not involved in the case, explained to local media. It certainly seems to be the charge that you would assume is correct. Now the tricky part is, just because it's a heat of passion situation, doesn't always mean manslaughter is the correct charge. As Alexander adjusted to life on bond, tensions in the community escalated. On July 27, just 9 days after Tyra's death, CMPD responded to reports of gunshots at the Alexander residence. Someone had fired multiple rounds into the home. Though no one was injured, the incident highlighted the volatile emotions surrounding the case. Meanwhile, investigators continued gathering evidence. Surveillance footage from the arcade on North Tryon Street showed Tyra and Alexander's husband together hours before the shooting. This crucial piece of evidence undermined the narrative that Tyra was an unknown intruder. I think that Tyra was very innocent in this situation, Hoskins stated. The GPS on her phone on her car states that she had only been to the residence one time. This digital evidence confirmed Tyra had traveled directly from the arcade to the Porter Street address. further supporting the family's claim that she had been invited to the home by Alexander's husband. As these details emerged, pressure mounted on the district attorney's office to reconsider the charges against Alexander. Tyra's family, led by the indefatigable Tanya Hoskins, began a public campaign demanding justice for her daughter. Family and friends gathered for a candlelight vigil to honor Tyra on Sunday, July 23rd. No goodbyes today. The community coming together yesterday for a candlelight vigil to remember Tyra Crosby. CPD says Stephanie Alexander came home and killed Crosby. Her family tells WCNC Charlotte she was invited over by the husband. Wake Up Charlotte's Richard Devane joins us now, and Richard, Alexander now out of jail on bond. That is correct, and as she's out of jail on bond awaiting her trial for voluntary manslaughter, the family and friends of Miss Crosby are remembering her life, not the way it ended, but the life she lived. The community came together to remember the vibrant 25-year-old whose life had been cut short. A celebration of life was held the following day at Greater Temple Baptist Church in Charlotte, where hundreds gathered to pay their respects. Throughout this period, Hoskins remained steadfast in her pursuit of justice, convinced that the recording of her daughter's final moments would be the key to ensuring Alexander faced appropriate charges for Tyra's death. This wasn't manslaughter, Hoskins insisted during the community vigil held for Tyra, and we won't rest until the charges reflect what truly happened to my daughter. The legal machinery began turning slowly in the weeks following Tyra Crosby's death. While Stephanie Alexander remained free on bond, the district attorney's office faced mounting pressure to reevaluate the charges against her. The voluntary manslaughter charge initially filed seemed increasingly inadequate as new evidence came to light. In a pivotal development that shifted the trajectory of the case, the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office presented evidence to a grand jury in late summer 2023. This included the damning 8-minute recording that captured Tyra's final moments, evidence that Tanya Hoskins had fought to ensure would be heard. The grand jury's decision was unanimous and significant. Stephanie Alexander would face indictment on second-degree murder charges. This elevated charge reflected the prosecution's assessment that Alexander's actions demonstrated malice, a critical legal distinction from the heat of passion defense typically associated with manslaughter. A Mecklenburg County grand jury has indicted a woman for second-degree murder in the shooting death of a Charlotte woman found inside her home in Northwest Charlotte, read the official statement from the district attorney's office. The announcement brought a measure of validation to Tyra's family, who had insisted from the beginning that her death was not a spontaneous act, but a deliberate killing. The upgraded charges carried substantially higher potential penalties. While voluntary manslaughter in North Carolina typically results in sentences of 3 to 7 years, second-degree murder convictions can bring 12 to 40 years in prison, a reflection of the greater culpability associated with malicious intent. Alexander's defense team immediately challenged the new indictment, filing motions to dismiss the murder charge and reinstate the original manslaughter charge. They argued that regardless of the recording's content, the case fundamentally involved a woman discovering another woman in her home with her husband, a classic heat of passion scenario. Court proceedings revealed the defense's strategy: portray Alexander as a wronged wife who reacted to extreme provocation. They emphasized her clean criminal record and standing in the community, suggesting the incident was an aberration in an otherwise law-abiding life. "I don't feel that justice will be served," Hoskins predicted during a pre-trial interview. "I know that if she's in her right mind, she'll take a plea. That plea may not give her much time." As the case moved toward trial, scheduled for December 5, 2023, both prosecution and defense teams engaged in intense preparation. Prosecutors built their case around the recording, the timeline discrepancies, and evidence suggesting Tyra had been invited to the home. The defense focused on Alexander's state of mind upon discovering her husband with another woman in their marital home. Legal experts following the case noted its complexity. "The recording changes everything," commented a former prosecutor not affiliated with the case. "Without it, this might have remained a manslaughter case. With it, prosecutors can argue premeditation and deliberation, elements that elevate the crime significantly." The courtroom became a battleground not just of legal arguments but of competing narratives. Was this a story about a homeowner defending her territory, or about a calculated act of violence against an innocent young woman? Was Alexander a victim of her husband's betrayal who snapped in a moment of emotional turmoil? Or was she a calculating killer who deliberately took a life? As the trial date approached, tensions between the families escalated. Security measures at the courthouse were enhanced after several confrontations during preliminary hearings. The case had touched a nerve in the Charlotte community, raising questions about self-defense, infidelity, and justice. Throughout the proceedings, Tyra's mother remained a constant presence, attending every hearing with quiet dignity. "I'm here for my daughter," she told reporters outside the courthouse. "She can't speak for herself anymore, so I have to be her voice." The stage was set for a December showdown that would determine whether Stephanie Alexander would face decades in prison or walk away with a significantly lighter sentence for what her defense team continued to characterize as a crime of passion. At the center of the prosecution's case against Stephanie Alexander stood one piece of evidence more powerful than any witness testimony or forensic analysis. An 8-minute voicemail that captured Tyra Crosby's final moments alive. This accidental recording, the result of Tyra's desperate attempt to reach her mother during the confrontation, transformed what might have remained a case of disputed self-defense into something far more disturbing. Though never released to the public due to its graphic nature, those who heard it described its contents as profoundly disturbing. It's about an 8-minute-long message of her being beat, tortured. Tanya Hoskins explained, her voice breaking as she recalled first hearing her daughter's final moments. "You can also hear them telling her that they were going to kill her." The recording began at approximately 4:00 a.m. on July 18, 2023. According to those familiar with its contents, it captured voices identified as both Stephanie Alexander and her husband. Cell phone captured her daughter's final moments. 25-year-old Tyra Crosby was killed early Tuesday morning at a home in Northwest Charlotte. CMPD charged Stephanie Alexander with voluntary manslaughter in this case. She bonded out of jail just hours later. WCCB Charlotte's Trish Williford is live in Uptown, and Trish, the victim's family wants the suspect to be charged with murder, right? Yeah, Morgan, they also want her back behind bars. Tonight, the victim's mother walks us through what she believes led to her daughter's death. "You're missing her, Leda. I am missing her." As she was being attacked at the home, she says a voicemail message captured her daughter's final moments. It's about an 8-minute long message of her being beat, tortured. You can also hear them tell her that they're gonna kill her. Hoskins would not allow us to hear that recording, but says she sent it to investigators. Alexander was given a $250,000 bond. Daniel Redford with Charmec FOP believes that's too low. This is an open door policy that we have in Mecklenburg County. So it sends the message to criminals that, hey, I can go out here and I can do something, and I'm going to go to jail and, maybe be able to take a shower and get a sandwich. I'm going to go right back out on the street again because, nothing's going to happen. This directly contradicted Alexander's initial claim to dispatchers that she had simply reacted to finding an intruder in her home. Prosecutors built their timeline meticulously around this recording. The timestamp showed Tyra was shot at approximately 4:08 a.m., yet Alexander didn't call 911 until nearly 5:00 a.m., a 52-minute gap during which no medical assistance was sought for the dying woman. The medical examiner's report offered physical evidence supporting the recording's account of events. Tyra's body showed defensive wounds and bruising consistent with a physical altercation prior to the shooting. injuries that aligned with the sounds of struggle captured in the voicemail. Ballistics analysis determined that the fatal shot had been fired from a distance of several feet, not during a close-quarters struggle. This finding further contradicted the narrative of an immediate defensive reaction. As these pieces of evidence came together, they painted a picture not of a homeowner surprised by an intruder, but of a confrontation that escalated to fatal violence over several minutes, time during which different choices could have been made. In court, testimony revealed that Alexander came home early from her job because she needed a computer for a class assignment. She told detectives she saw clothes on the couch and asked who was in the house before grabbing her gun. She told police that her husband tried to grab the gun from her and she pulled it back. When she saw the bathroom door open, she shot and thought she was aiming at the wall. For the prosecution, the recording represented irrefutable evidence of malice aforethought, the critical element distinguishing murder from manslaughter. For Tyra's family, it was both a blessing and a curse, vital evidence that might bring justice, but also a permanent record of their loved one's suffering. "No mother should ever have to hear what I heard," Hoskins said during a pre-trial interview, "but if that recording is what it takes to get justice for my daughter, then I'll listen to it every day in court, if I have to." The courtroom fell silent as Stephanie Alexander rose to address the judge in December 2023. After months of legal maneuvering, she had accepted a plea deal, admitting guilt to voluntary manslaughter, rather than facing trial for second-degree murder. "I want to apologize to the family," Alexander said, her voice barely audible as she turned toward the rows where Tyra's relatives sat. "I never meant for any of this to happen." For Tanya Hoskins, these words rang hollow. Too little too late for the daughter whose life had been cut short at 25. The plea agreement meant Alexander would serve a minimum of 5 years in prison, far less than the decade she might have faced if convicted of murder. The sentencing hearing itself became a flashpoint of raw emotion. As Alexander offered her apology, tension that had been building for months erupted. A scuffle broke out between Alexander's husband, the man whose actions had set these tragic events in motion, and a member of Tyra's family. Court officers rushed to separate them as the judge called for order, a chaotic scene that underscored how deeply this case had wounded both families. Before I share my final thoughts on this tragic case, I'd like to ask, what do you think about the sentence Stephanie Alexander received? Was justice served with a 5-year minimum sentence, or do you believe she deserved more time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For the Charlotte community, the case had raised uncomfortable questions about domestic violence, jealousy, and the legal system's handling of crimes of passion. Some saw Alexander's sentence as appropriate for a woman who had discovered another woman with her husband in their home. Others viewed it as a troubling message about the value placed on Tyra's young life. 5 years for taking a life, Hoskins said outside the courthouse after sentencing. "The system failed my daughter today." The plea deal meant that the 8-minute recording, the evidence that had elevated the charges to murder, would never be played in open court. This spared both families from reliving Tyra's final moments in public, but also meant that the full truth of what happened in those pre-dawn hours would remain known only to those who had heard the recording. Alexander's husband, whose name had largely remained out of media coverage, faced no criminal charges for his role in the events. His decision to invite Tyra to the marital home without disclosing his marriage status had created the volatile situation, yet legally he bore no responsibility for the violence that followed. For Tyra's fashion business, dreams died with her. The clothing line she had worked so hard to establish would never reach its potential. Friends from the local design community held a memorial fashion show in her honor, showcasing pieces from her final collection. A bittersweet tribute to talent cut short, the case left lasting impacts beyond the immediate families. In Charlotte's legal community, it became a reference point in discussions about how to charge cases involving domestic situations and self-defense claims. The role of the recording in elevating the charges highlighted how technology has changed criminal investigations and prosecutions. For Tanya Hoskins, the conclusion of the legal proceedings marked not an end but a transition to a different kind of fight. She established a foundation in Tyra's name focused on relationship transparency and violence prevention, turning her grief into action that might prevent similar tragedies. "My daughter's death was preventable," Hoskins explained at the foundation's launch. "If there had been honesty about that man's marriage, if there had been a different choice made when anger took over, Tyra would still be here today." The story of Tyra Crosby serves as a stark reminder of how quickly life can change, how a chance meeting at an arcade can lead to tragedy, how secrets and lies can escalate to violence, how 8 minutes can forever alter multiple lives. For those who followed the case, it offered sobering lessons: the importance of transparency in relationships, the dangers of jealousy and rage, and the irreversible consequences of split-second decisions made in moments of high emotion. As Stephanie Alexander began serving her sentence in early 2024, two families continued the difficult process of rebuilding lives shattered by the events of July 18, 2023. For one, there was the prospect of eventual reunion. For the other, only memories remained of a vibrant young woman whose potential would never be realized, whose life ended not because of any choice she made but because she trusted someone who wasn't worthy of that trust.